Check out these upcoming events from IME Inc. Pride Karaoke and Brunch every second Saturdays at Townsend Tavern. What? Me Fest is coming August 12th on the Green. Join the movement. We giving a look. Check us out at imecorp.org for details on upcoming events and more. Welcome to Spotlight LGBTQ+. The mission of Spotlight LGBTQ is to provide a safe space for networking, learning, and sharing of information and resources. Don't be scared. Join the discussion. Click the link in the caption to join the live or simply leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I am me. Let's go.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of LGBT Spotlight with IME. I am Dion Hill, and I am the public liaison and the legislative chair of the legislative committee. And this evening, we're going to have an interesting discussion that I feel as though is pertinent to the LGBT community and its allies, and how allies and can help the community and also venture into getting more LGBT people involved in the politics of their community from an ally perspective. First of all, before we get to that, I wanted to actually play the proclamation from June 6th. We had been invited to the governor's proclamation in Delaware. We had a little mention in C-SPAN also that day. And if we can, after this clip, we'll get into meeting the people on our panel this evening.
It's Pride Month. It's Pride Month.
Okay, that was quick. Okay, so we have two people on our panel today. We have Darius Mayfield and Jenna Hardwood. I would like for you to introduce yourself, Jenna, and if you would like to go first.
Yep, my name is Jenna Hardwood. I moved here from Texas almost 2 years ago. I'm actually a marriage and family therapist by profession, but I've done a lot of volunteer work, specifically within the LGBTQ plus community. I was on the board for North Texas Pride Foundation for 6 years. They still have a festival every year that I fly back to, volunteer for the day of. I was also on the board for Gay and Lesbian Alliance of North Texas, HRC's Dallas DFW Family Steering Committee. I ran before the SCOTUS decisions that allowed recognition of gay marriage. I ran a series of workshops called LGBT Adoption Options that helped gay and lesbian trans couples and single people understand that they could adopt kids within the foster care system. I joined my first Gay and Lesbian Alliance at 19. So a lot of experience.
A lot of experience, yes. And Mr. Mayfield, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Darius Mayfield. I am the Republican candidate for Congress in New Jersey's 12th Congressional District. I am also the founder and chairman of the Darius Mayfield Foundation, which focuses on bringing quality education and school choice to diverse American communities while closing the transportation gap in underserved rural and urban communities. I am the founder of American Cleanup, where over the last 3-4 years, we have taken, especially political people and just Americans alike, through urban cities all throughout the East Coast and in some places around the country, like Newark, New Jersey, Paterson, New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, and have picked up over 70 tons of trash in that time. And our real goal is just to go there and spread love and just spread encouragement to underserved communities. Although I have not really sat on any LGBTQ boards or anything of that sort, I am a common sense American that has gay members in my family, members of the LGBTQ plus community in my friend circle, and just somebody that's grown up in a time in this country where we understand and respect the rights of all people. So in that fashion, in that way, I am always an ally to the community, understanding that they have rights to live free and be who they are, just like any other human being on this earth. And I will always be a steward to help protect those rights and make sure all people, especially in this country right now, are treated with dignity and respect. And I'm happy to be here with you guys today.
Oh, thank you. That as you can see from looking, we have a great panel here, and also we have a diverse panel from different walks of life. To piggyback on what Darius said, I was born and raised in Camden, New Jersey. For the first, I was there for the first 25, 27, 26 years of my life. So I do, and I'm familiar with the area that you, with all parts of New Jersey. So good to see another New Jersey person just out there doing a good fight,
Right.
Yeah. It's so funny because when New Jersey is actually a little bigger than what people think, and then it's actually kind of small when you actually from Jersey, because when you say you're from a certain town, everybody knows that town in Jersey with all the 66 counties, but you still know. But it is bigger than what people give it for.
It's the most densely populated state in the country, so there's just so many of us crammed into a little space. So also the most diverse state in the entire country, so there's a lot of good that comes from Jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm from South Jersey, you from North Jersey, but it's like two different worlds, but we meet in the middle.
Absolutely.
The first thing that I wanted to bring out to everybody is the first question that I had for the panel and that I wanted to relay for myself is, we want to try to talk about being an ally to the community. So what do you believe is considered a good ally? If anyone can take that first.
Go ahead. Sure.
Do you want me to go?
So Jenna, go ahead first. I'm sorry. Let me be the traffic cop. Go ahead.
Okay. So honestly, to be a good ally, I think is more than just, putting the rainbow flag up on, social media during, June. And I think it's much like, obviously I'm white. It's much like with any minority population, is that people who have more privilege, who have more opportunities, should be willing to kind of to stick their necks out and be uncomfortable and sacrifice for those who don't have those same opportunities, that don't have those same privileges. I think a big one is voting in not your own best interest as a white person, but in the best interest of other people. I think, I heard a preacher one time say that who's your ally by when you're a burden, when somebody actually has to do something for you because you don't have those same opportunities or that same power. I think that's really important. Again, because I'm off of a Juneteenth event that was wonderful. It's not the LGBTQ's responsibility of that community to educate you. read, right? Go to an event, read a gay periodical, go to a PFLAG meeting. Like there's so many different ways that you can go and try to immerse yourself a little bit in that community without having to put that burden on them. So,
Okay. Okay. Darius?
I think being a good ally is just like being a good friend, somebody that will be there to, again, as I mentioned in my monologue, show you and represent dignity for the community, and understand that we are all people, we are all humans, and we all have our rights in this country, especially in America. But at the same time, somebody that can have those tough conversations as well, and make sure we are engaging in intelligent, sustainable conversation that will make sure, we push things forward in the right manner, because at the end of the day, we want, everybody to feel respected. We want everybody to feel dignified. And that means, having those tough conversations and understanding both sides of the argument sometimes. So especially in the positions that I put myself in, especially as running for office, I think it's important for that community to understand somebody like myself that does have a love and respect for them, does appreciate and understand the freedom that everyone has to be themselves, and also just be an intelligent advocate in the way everything is pushed forward, making it more palatable for, those people in those communities that may not otherwise, necessarily so easily receive the information. So I think being intelligent in everything we do, doing it out of love, doing it out of understanding, and being intelligent in the way we move is definitely the best ally for not just the LGBTQ community, but any community, especially in this country, that wants to move forward and, wants to push an agenda and, be accepted, but be accepted in the right ways, and do it out of respect for everyone that's affected by what's going on.
Thank you. I don't know if you were paying attention. I was smiling a little bit as you were speaking, because several things that you harped on, I actually have written down in my questions, because my next question was, what are some of the conversations do you have with people that may not know or are quote unquote ignorant to the LGBT community? Especially, I like to think as allies, we may be in certain spaces that those people of the people of the community may not be in. I also believe that being an ally is a good friend, and being a good friend is actually standing up for your friend when they're not around and defending them. But has any? I'm pretty sure, especially because of who we all are on this panel, we have probably came around in conversations and had these discussions with people and tried to get them to understand. As being an ally, are these conversations tough to have with maybe family members or friends that you hold in good regard, but they may be unknowing to certain things? Because I'm explaining to you like this. For me, I don't think I was ever anti. I just didn't look at it because it didn't concern me. And then I had someone in my family that came out, and then about 20 years ago. And then I had to start actually looking at, the community. And then over the years, I've met friends, and I have had people that's really close to me that are part of the community. And through my profession, I would do events with people that were LGBT. And it just dawned to me that personally, how I became an ally is I didn't see any difference. They were just people working, loving, raising families, trying to be a part of, just get a part of the quote unquote slice the pie American dream. But over the years, I've had to have tough conversations with some people and give them understanding. Can anybody reflect on a time that you may had to have that conversation with somebody?
I mean, I guess for me, it's I may be the wrong person to analyze it only because like it's very easy for me to have conversations about anything. I don't know if it's
Right.
just a function of the job, especially being in politics now. But I also came from the automotive industry where I had a lot of conversations, did a lot of talking. So they always told me I had the gift of gab. So when it comes to talking, I already have the fundamental understanding that that's the way to really move anything forward, especially when it comes to issues that are facing us as a people in this country, legislatively, whatever it is. It's all about conversations. It's all about relationships and things of that sort. So, especially being I guess, a Republican, obviously I see both sides. I hear both many different conversations, whether it's somebody that's adamantly against the community or what's going on, or it's people that are on the fence, or being from a Democratic Black family, the conversations with them where it's pretty accepted in some circles and things of that sort. So as I've said before, I think it's just about being intelligent in any approach, and I try to just listen people out and give them my opinion. As we stated in the beginning, I'm from New Jersey. I was born in 1985. I'm an 80s baby. So we've seen it all, done it all. We're the most diverse state in the country. As I said, I have, members of the community that are in my family, friends growing up. And, I think one of the misconceptions, and, I think this is why it also makes it easier to have the conversations, because I realize I do have the opportunity to broaden a lot of people's minds. For example, with me being a Republican, one of my best friends is one of the biggest conservative activists in the country, Scott Pressler, and he is gay. And I've never thought about that or had a problem with it. But the misconception is on that side of the aisle, those things don't exist. When in fact, especially over the last 4, 5, 6 years, just like on the Democratic side, there has been a real big boom of those that are LGBTQ on the right in the Republican Party. I know many of those people, from the Brandon Straka's to the Scott Presslers. And then, obviously, like I said, on the left, there's also been this movement over the last several years. So those things do exist throughout all walks of life. And I think, like anything, just having that understanding, walking into those conversations and being able to articulate it in those ways just helps move the conversation forward and tries to find some type of understanding, even if we don't agree on everything.
Great.
So can I add?
Jenna, you have the floor.
So yes, I've had a lot of those difficult conversations, but I think part of that is that there's a huge difference between understanding and agreement. So someone can understand what the other person's saying, but still not necessarily agree with that. And that doesn't mean that they don't understand. That just means I don't agree with that. And I think that it's important to, if you truly are an ally, that regardless of, and of course we're going to do this, with respect and love and all of that. But at the same time, though, like I've had conversations with certain, not just family, but also, lots of protesters. Texas always has protesters at any kind of pride event. Yes, am I going to go and bring water to those protesters because it's a gazillion degrees outside in Texas? Am I going to be respectful? Yes, but am I ever going to be able to understand as far as agree? No, we have a fundamental difference in our values. And I think that that's okay. Like, I'm going to be respectful to them, but I know that we're probably never going to see eye to eye there. They think that being gay is a choice and it's a sin. I'm not ever going to be able to meet them there. Right. So I think it kind of some acceptance of there's certain issues that maybe we won't ever entirely be able to meet in the middle on, because I know I can't move towards their way. And I'm assuming a pretty good chance that they're going to say they can't meet me towards where I'm at. I think that's okay. We are just going to maybe not be in the same camp, but we're always going to be respectful of one another. But that doesn't mean that anyone needs to back down from what they believe is right. I mean, I feel pretty strongly that I'm right.
On that point, and I'm going to piggyback off that. I totally agree with the fact that people can understand and people are, staunch in their beliefs and they feel a certain way. And I'm good with that. But I personally, I think what we're all saying is we should be able to have a respectful discourse and dialogue. And even if we don't come to agreement, we should be able to value the other person's opinion, even if we don't agree.
And it's not necessarily a failure if you don't agree. Like sometimes that's just you just have
Paris, who is getting in the
um Daria.
Paris? I'm
Hi,
sorry.
that's Daria. She's joining. Introduce yourself, Daria. Tell them about who you are, and
She's on mute.
are you on mute?
I can't hear her.
I think your mic is not on. Okay, she's trying to turn her microphone on, but Daria,
What okay, what I was saying is before we'll get that try to get that working. But I think the discourse about being an ally is getting those people like Darius spoke of earlier. There's people, especially it's people that's on the fence, and because they don't know. So when you have these conversations with the people that are on the fence and give them that type of information, because like I said, for even for myself personally, I may have been considered on the fence because I just didn't focus on it. It just wasn't a part of my lexicon, and I didn't think about it because I was focused on my own life and to that extent. But when you actually have conversations with people and that are on the fence, because I get a lot of questions from people because I'm part of this organization that are friends of mine that are interested in knowing because it's such a big thing in the news and now it's happening. They're getting uh, more familiar with it because they may have people in their family that are in the community and they want to be educated. So I think it's more important as allies to reach those people that's on the fence and that really are just neutral and want to have an understanding and want to so we can pull them over to being an ally. Um, One of the other things that I wanted to touch base on now we want um, that both of y'all are very familiar with is the politics part of being an ally and how politics affects the LGBT community. Um, I'm interested in knowing your both of your thoughts on some of the bills that's been passed across the. First of all, I don't want to I don't want to box Mr. Mayfield into having a political debate about some certain things that don't have anything to do with New Jersey in the district that you're running for. So I'm just talking about an overview of some of the bills. There have been a lot of this year has been over 80 anti-trans bills in different states and things of that nature. And then it's just from what I would like to think of is just all out uh, war against the gay community in the last 6 months in this legislative year. Um, does anybody have any views on the different bills that have been pushed upon or that's been passed or proposed throughout Florida, Texas, anywhere, Alabama? Louisiana?
Well, I was going to say that there's always quite a few coming down the Texas pipeline. But going back to, and I will say in Delaware has an okay record. anybody that's curious to look up, Delaware or other states, there's a great website, lgbtmap.org, and it kind of will go through what protections does the community have versus they don't have. But I will say, even in Texas, kind of, and again, I think being a good ally is voting in not necessarily your own best interest as a hetero person, but in the LGBTQ community. I volunteered on a lot of campaigns in Texas. We had like Mark Ferris running, against Angela Paxton. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. She is a wife of Ken Paxton, who's the current AG in Texas, who was just indicted. That case has been going on for years. But Mark Ferris lost by a couple of points. I mean, he lost by about 7,800 votes in a district with almost 1 million people, and also only had a 7% voter turnout. Like, it was like pathetic. Angela Paxton has expressed a lot of support for Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. So, yeah, on one hand, I think people, it's easy to get apathetic and go, oh, it's just my one vote. Well, that one vote and that one vote and that one vote. Yeah. I mean, Mark Ferris is openly out man, lost in a very red county by a couple of points. And that's kind of a big deal when you have somebody in a position of power who expresses support for anti-gay and trans bills. Your vote means a lot. Your vote is your voice. I was going to add one other thing, and I'll shut up. That I think frequently people dislike what they don't know. So they watch something on social media, they hear something on even a podcast, whatever. But that belief that they hold, if you ask that person, so have you ever sat down with someone who's gay or trans, right, and actually heard their story? And most of the time you're going to hear no. They really haven't gotten to hear somebody's story. They really haven't gotten to really know that person and their struggle and what they've gone through. They just have an idea up here because of something that they've heard or they've read, but they really don't have any evidence to back that up. They haven't actually, go to a peace meeting, meet somebody in the community and actually spend some time with them. You'll find you have maybe some misconceptions, things that you didn't understand or know.
Okay. Thanks, Jenna. Darius, did you have anything that you wanted to state on that on your behalf?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, sorry, this thing keeps popping up. As far as the bills that you're referring to, that's primarily been on the state level. So for somebody as myself that's running at the federal level, it's not really something that is within our purview. In a lot of cases, kind of like with the abortion issue going on right now, it's a lot of state assemblies, state senates, putting them laws into place. But in New Jersey, as I mentioned before, we come from a very diverse state. I've seen it all right next to New York City. And here we haven't really dealt with legislation having to do with the LGBT community. I think the closest thing we've probably got to it on a state level is more of the curriculum in the schools out here, and that fight going on throughout the country. And even more so what they've talked about really would have to do more so with the gender changing surgeries, and in some states being proposed at an adolescent level as opposed to just being subject to adults. So those are the type of conversations that I think, as we were talking about before, are things that need to continuously be discussed intelligently on both sides, because they are issues that intimately affect people, their lives, their children, and the way people choose to live their life in this country. And as the other guest said, at the end of the day, we don't also all necessarily have to agree on everything, but it's important that things are done with respect and dignity when talking about them. And I think that's the great thing about this country, where we don't have to agree on every single issue, but being able to have that intelligent conversation and is a very important part of our country and progressing our country in all ways. So I think the conversation around maybe the gender changing surgeries with adolescents and the school curriculums is one that this country is having right now, one that we need to continue to have, and there needs to be level heads on both sides to try to have some understanding for what the other is thinking, for what the other is saying, because at the end of the day, this is the United States of America. And as we know, all across this country, people have different beliefs, different social statuses, different everything. So this is not a country where we are all just the same, think alike. We're not monolithic in that way. So we just need to continue to keep having the conversations.
Can I interject? Okay, I'm sorry, but also because I'm a counselor and about a third of my practice at any given time is the transgender community. Because we've had a lot of the, especially dealing with minors, legislation come down the pipe, and there is this, because you hear a lot of terms being thrown around, when it comes to minors and child abuse and gender mutilation and all this genitalia mutilation, but that's not actually what's happening. Literally, the gender affirming care that's happening with minors, at least in Texas, in my experience, is we're talking about puberty blockers, which literally just means you take a pill and it blocks the onset of puberty. At any time, if that is not taken again, then puberty happens. So when we're talking, especially in young kids, like no one's doing surgeries. Like that's no one's, doing sexual reassignment surgery for 10-year-olds. Like that's just not happening. We're talking about blockers, right? And then as they get older, they can go and get some HRT. But again, these also are things that aren't permanent. But I think the message that gets spread is that kids are going through a phase, or they're confused, and we're just sending them to surgery. And like I promise that's really not happening. Unfortunately, that's not the message that I think is being heard.
Well, I think maybe as you said, that's maybe more specific to Texas and what's going on. But especially in today's age, with social media, with information being able to disseminate so quickly, we see that that's not the case in a lot of places around the country, specifically places like California, and even to a degree places like New Jersey, which are following the California roadmap, which our governor has openly said. And in places like California, and this is why you have people from all stripes of life, not just Republicans, not just conservatives, but Democrats, not just white, but Black people as well, that are saying, and wanting to have a real conversation, because in places like California, they're proposing law right now, and I think one might have went into effect where if you don't capitulate in those terms to a minor when they're going through those gender identity issues, your kids can now be taken away from you. I know you talk about puberty blockers in places like Texas, but for a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, there's a large swath of Americans that don't believe that a child should be able to make that decision, and they definitely don't want the government being able to come in and tell them they have no right over their 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old child when it comes to making those decisions. So this is where I talk about having intelligent conversations and understanding that not everybody thinks the same, and that doesn't mean that either side is necessarily a bad person or on the wrong path, but there has to be a mutual respect when it comes to conversations, and we definitely can't just dismiss what we're talking about. It reminds me of and not to get too political, but the CRT conversation where that kept being thrown out, where no, this is not happening in certain schools and this, and it's almost like every single week we're now seeing the lesson plans in elementary schools, in middle schools, where that is exactly happening. So again, when we approach these conversations, we definitely have to approach it from a place of open eyes and willingful acceptance of hearing the other side out and understanding why they may have some differences from you.
Yeah, and I'm going to, I'll let you get, I hope you got everything out, because I think we kind of like divvying away from what we were like specifics, and the crazy thing is when we're talking about the community, because it's so big and there's so many different issues, we can go back and forth and go around and around, and then we'll have a discussion centered on certain things that can take on the 30, 40 hours. But I mean, I'm that's the type of conversation and on the both sides thoughts of it that is good to have. But I want to just kind of just bring us back to the being a good ally, and when we talking about things that we can agree with when it comes to just being a good ally to the LGBT community. And actually, when I talked about, it's so difficult when we bleed into politics about, it's so many opinionated. But on a generalization view, how would both of y'all, because y'all both have experience in the political spheres and talking to people that want to, what would you tell somebody that is part of the community how they should get involved in politics? How, like, if it's actually prevalent. And I was looking, and not I'm not singling you out, Darius, but I was looking at listening to you and saw an interview, and I would like to say you may be a representative of, it's never too late to get involved in politics, because I'm not sure if I was wrong with or misheard the way you said you didn't vote until 2016. And okay, I don't even want to disparage you. I thought that's what you said, but so it's never too late, I guess, to start to get involved. I mean, so what would you tell somebody that's part of the community? If a lot of times people that are of minorities or that are subjected in a certain community say, like Jenna was talking about, it's only one vote. I live in New Jersey, it's a blue state. My vote's not going to count. I need to go to Ohio for my vote to count, or something to that extent. What would you say for you personally? And I'm going to leave that to Jenna too. What would you say to somebody that's a part of the community to get involved with politics? And even if it's on their local level, and I'm not saying per se running for office, but just get involved in starting to get registered and get out there to vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Obviously, with me voting for the first time in my life in 2016, that is the perfect example of it's never too late to join politics. Because for many years I had watched, like everybody else from the sideline, especially and specifically when it came to the national elections. Most of us, now that I'm in politics and know more about it, obviously you hear this a lot in politics, but all politics does really start local. So it is important to get involved in more of those local committees and local offices. But before I actually, started running and getting deeply enthralled in politics, I just watched it more on a national level, meaning the federal elections, the presidential elections, and things of that sort. What I would say to anybody in any community that wants to get involved in politics is just do it. Like I tell them with anything. My motto is not black, not white, American. When I say that, I mean it. We are all Americans. We are all free at the end of the day. I come from the freest generation to ever walk this earth. That's why I can sit here in front of you as, let's say, a Republican representative and, talk and move in ways that, some in the older generations may have not been able to ever see or understand. That is because I am a regular, down to earth, everyday American that has political views that may fall on both sides of the aisle, some different when it comes to social issues, some different when it comes to fiscal issues. And that's okay, because that's where the majority of Americans sit in this country. So it's important for those people to understand, as freedom-loving, free Americans, it is your right to get into politics, to become an activist, to do whatever it is you think you can do to help somebody else, help your cause, help your community anytime you want. Never be afraid to do so, and never be afraid to speak your truth to any power that may be in front of you. And that's what my campaign is all about. That's what I'm all about. Just inspiring people and letting them know that they can do it at the end of the day as well. And I think that was probably a big part of me just jumping into politics, just to just serve an example to let people know, you can do anything you want, especially in this great country. So my message to them is to just do it. Always move forward with love. Right now, what people are craving are authenticity. So always be authentic. No more of the old politics of the old guards where you say one thing, do another behind closed doors. Say what you mean what you say. Always move in love and treat everybody with dignity.
Paris, I'm sorry, Jenna.
Honestly, I think that there's a place for everyone. And that's really, I mean, that's as simple as getting registered to vote and voting, to like just being aware of your community, what's going on around you. That's anybody can go and attend an open city council meeting. Anybody can go and attend a housing commission or like, you can get involved in very, very small ways, and you don't have to make a huge commitment. But I think that everybody's kind of a piece in the machine, and do what you're able to do. Even during the pandemic, when really I couldn't do much, I wrote a lot of postcards. I know that. But I also think, and this is from a white person's point of view, I also think that it's about listening to other people, right? When I know that short of being a white male, I'm at the top, right? That I've had more opportunities than a lot of other people. So it's okay to go and kind of take a step back and just listen to people who have different experiences than you, who've grown up differently, who've had vastly different experiences. Like, just listen, here's somebody's story, and try to appreciate that even though we might come from very different walks of life, we've had very different experiences, that we all kind of want the same stuff, right? We want safe schools. We want, opportunities, economically. We want, housing that we can afford. We want to be able to put food on the table. Like, everybody pretty much wants the same thing.
And to piggyback on what both of you said, the key factor is when you do come from an underserved community and you are looked upon and you are a minority, it is probably in your best interest to get involved. Mm-hmm. And so your voice is heard. So many times we allow other people to make decisions for us. And then we complain. At a certain point, you can't sit on the sidelines anymore, because complaining is not allowed when you don't participate, in my view. And a lot of you people that want to get something. Politics, I know a lot of people sit and say, like, I don't like politics, I don't get involved in politics, but politics governs a lot of our lives on everyday matters that we don't even know. You want that street light on a certain corner, or that stoplight, because we've been having accidents at a certain corner. You want those circles taken out in New Jersey. You want some of those dangerous, you know what I'm talking about, you want some of those circles taken.
Dangerous.
They took a lot of those, well, at least in South Jersey, they took a lot of those circles out, and that took some doing on the political level, and to actually put some more juggle handles in and more stoplights in. But those are things that affect people's lives on a local level, that politics and councilmen and things to get it, to make yourself and your life safer. So even in the LGBT, you should get involved and void a political party, void all the other things. I think it's more or less important that politics should be part of your existence to make yourself better. And as allies, that I believe don't, because it's more of us than there are of people in the LGBT community. So we need to stand up and stand next to them and give them all the support that we can. I love the conversation, and I thank you for both of your perspectives. Um, if you want, one of the things one last thing before we go, and this may seem like a silly question, but in some of this legislation, and I'm gonna go back to legislation, is talked about the protection of heterosexuals. And usually, as an ally, we don't. Do you feel as though at any point that you personally have been threatened, your way of life has been changed or threatened by any a quote unquote gay agenda that some people may say, or something? I'm just asking. I'm just asking because some people may say, and I'm gonna be honest. I've had a friend of mine who has a trans son, say to me, they have everything already. They even have ice cream. And my refer to her was, you sound like the people in the 60s when they was talking about black people. And when you say they have everything that they want. But as a heterosexual, do you feel as though your way of life is being jeopardized, or should anybody that is heterosexual feel as though they way of life is being jeopardized by gay people? I mean,
you already know I'm going to respond, so I think Darius will take this.
I mean, I'm not. It's not really. I don't want it. I don't want it to seem like it was a loaded question. I know because I just think it's a silly thought personally. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think my life personally is in danger. I mean, I'm a heterosexual man. Again, I also have experienced enough in my life and been around enough diversity where, and I think this goes back to something we were talking about in the beginning, where people may develop some misconceptions about certain things because they're not necessarily around it. And I think even when it comes to race, that's one of the biggest problems. A lot of white people in certain areas haven't never ever been around black people. A lot of black people in certain areas haven't ever been around white people, so of course they don't understand each other. But in my life, one of the things I learned is that not every gay man is going to come up to me or try and make me feel uncomfortable and those things. And I think that's one of those silly misconceptions that some people out there will stereotype and use as a defense. But as I said, in my experience, I think at least from what I've seen, it mostly comes more down to the gender surgeries, the curriculum, and arguments of that sort, which are much more complex issues to me. And those are things that are going through the political process and through the communities. So they have those conversations. But me personally, no, I don't feel threatened. Again, I have gay family members, gay friends. I treat them the same as my heterosexual family members, my heterosexual friends. I am not the type of guy you're ever going to catch coming out my mouth and, disrespecting people of that community or calling them certain names or being bigoted in that fashion. But I do understand that there are those out there that still do. And I hope that through my actions and through who I am and how I speak and the things that I do, we can lessen that disrespect and again, just continue to engage in meaningful conversation.
Thank you. Pierce, you had something to add before we ended? I just seen you popped in.
I've been trying to chime in, but my microphone was acting up. I'm like, so no, Jenna, I'll let Jenna speak, and then I do have one.
The only thing I will say is again, I mean, I would be curious if there is certainly any programs or surgeons that are performing, gender altering surgeries on minors in New Jersey or Delaware, actually anywhere in the Northeast, that I'm unaware of. And again, I know that wasn't occurring in Texas, but as far as does the LGBTQ community impact me? No, it's not like I'm, trying to like get in my car and there's two like men kissing and oh, get out of my way. It's like, no, it does not impact me in any way at all. It doesn't. I think what it impacts for some heterosexual people who are or feel threatened by that is it impacts their view of what they think is right. If you know, two men or two women get married, that does not make my marriage any less valid. It really doesn't. And I think when people start to, if you can really kind of dissect some of these arguments and really think about it, it doesn't impact you. You're fine. We're all fine. Nobody's rights means that I get less rights. They just want the same stuff that I get, and they should.
And on that point, before I go to Paris, when the Marriage Equality Act came out, I was all for it. Speaking of a person that's been divorced 2 times, hey, misery for everybody. Equal misery all around. But that was just me being
I'm happily
joking.
okay. I think it's cool.
Paris, did you need to add something before we get off of here?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm like, what? Why am I feeling like y'all can't hear me or whatever? I love this show. I think it's great. I hear Darius stirring around the term American, and as an LGBTQ plus person, we don't feel American. We are LGBT first. And when I hear a politician say that, I feel like they are erasing me. Um, can you tell me why is that just a blatant term? Where is it to not address LGBT people directly, to not deal with us, or to not answer any questions? Or is that supposed to be inclusive? Because it doesn't feel inclusive. It just feels like I'm being erased. And then when I see all of this legislation about my trans brothers and sisters, even further makes me feel more erased. Like, I don't exist. You don't want to have these conversations with me. So why is that is that just a blatant term, or you guys, is it just, could you just explain that part? Because I just felt so erased. And I wanted to share that with you because I know what you're trying to do in your journey, but I don't know about other LGBT people, but that makes me feel invalid, erased, because I know when I'm out here, I'm not seen as American when I'm holding my girlfriend's hand. I'm not seen as not even black. I'm seen as maybe a dyke, or, if I was dressed like a boy, I'm a stud, or I don't know what the F she is. So could you kind of explain that for me?
Yeah, I've actually had never had anybody, say that to me, but I guess I have heard it in the sense from, and just a few black people when I use the phrase "not black, not white, American." I guess that those few people that have had a problem with that kind of feel the same way. They felt like in some way I was erasing their blackness, right? And that's not the case at all. For me, American is just that, being American. We were all born here. We all live in this country. We all share this country. Our ideas and our experiences all make up this country. So for me, whether you're LGBTQ plus, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Spanish, whatever you are, you're American at the end of the day. And I think that's important for us to understand, especially in today's time with so much going on outside there in the world. Kind of like the experience for black people, even the LGBTQ experience. I know we have our problems here in this country, but you go outside of this country, like with other things, like with being black, like with being certain religions and things like that, there are places where the experiences are even worse. I was proud of the last administration that put up a proposal to globally fight the criminalization of homosexuals and things of that sort. And I think that is one of those fundamental American themes that we can kind of share no matter what side of the aisle that you're on. I think just like with the black community, sometimes, again, it goes back to, even though, as I told you, I come from the most diverse state in the country, and it's all love, peace. We know it's not all love, peace, and happiness everywhere, right? So I know, I remember growing up, and maybe in some instances, I was dating a certain girl of a certain background, and their people, their family had a problem with that because I was a Black man. Now that didn't make me take that experience and cast aspersion on anyone that looked like them or acted like them or came from the same background. I understood that it was that minority subset of people. And I think that's what happens with the LGBT community as well. Is it's a very small, subset of people. And unfortunately, especially on the political level, sometimes that's all it takes for those people to be able to affect the community so significantly. So that's why I think it's important, the conversations we had today, where you just encourage people to get involved, so we don't have those extremities happening where people are being persecuted because of their sexual orientation. I don't believe in that. I don't think you should be persecuted for that, your religion, your race, or anything. But so I think it's just having that understanding. I think, to me personally, the word American more so brings you and your community and others into the fold, rather than cast aspersion and kick them out the fold. Because regardless of what you are, your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, at the end of the day, we all are Americans. And if we can have that at least basic fundamental understanding, from there, everything is just a conversation throughout to try to get to, where some of us want to be and create those understandings. So it's definitely not a slight to the community. I think, and I hope, as I've talked throughout this podcast, that people understand that me personally has no problem, with the community and their freedom to be who it is that they want to be. And I think I hope I spoke intelligently enough to make people feel that and understand that, and also was able to still express how I believe that intelligent, important conversation is always important and always should be had, no matter if we're talking about these issues, Black community issues, religious issues, whatever it is at the end of the day.
Okay, so
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And my
Thank
next
you very much.
question,
Oh, yeah,
not to cut anybody off. Okay, so we all American, kumbaya. How do we get to this space that you're talking about, where we have these conversations if some people don't actually understand the community? How do we get to this space? What do we need to do?
Well, I think you guys had a good start by having somebody like myself on your podcast, that people from this community may not traditionally think can be an ally or, be sensible when it comes to these issues. But as I said, I hope that people listening understand that I am, as I am with a lot of other issues, even, issues from our community, the Black community, when I'm talking about the gentrification of our communities or getting better quality educations, at first, some people had the same responses where, well, because he is who he is and he represents what he represents, he can't possibly understand this or, have our best interests at heart. But in fact, when you talk to me, when you learn of my experiences and where I'm from, what I've been through and what shapes me, there's no way you can't understand that I do understand, I do care, and I don't just talk about it. I do it in everything I do, whether it's the cleanups, whether it's the countless homeless drives, clothes drives that I've, put on and done in the inner city, whether it was me knocking on 6,000 doors in Trenton, New Jersey, where not even the other side would go because they were afraid to go into those communities, talk all day about those communities, but were afraid to actually step foot in those communities and do what I did for over 2 years. So I think it's just about doing what you guys are doing now, making sure you're putting reputable people up and people that can be open to all people, all ideas, all conversations, and continue to speak with sense and not just shout at people, shout over people, but bring common sense solutions and talk common sense ways to people and be respectful and bring dignity to the conversation.
Jenna, you were waving your. I'm sorry, Jenna, you were waving your hand.
But I was going to say how how you're talking about your experiences have shaped you and who you are, but those are very different experiences from maybe somebody else. And so for example, my friend Jolanda, we were on the phone and she was telling me how she would never let her son, Jolanda's Black, never let her son walk the dog past 5 p.m. I don't even think about that. We both have sons in their 20s. I would never be fearful of my son walking the dog in our neighborhood after 5 o'clock when it starts to get dark. So, yes, we're all American, but there's no way I can say, oh, Jolanda and I share very similar experiences. Absolutely not. And I think that if you're part of the majority, it doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're cisgender, doesn't matter if you're straight, that if you are part of the majority, and this is going to sound harsh, but I'm direct, you need to just shh, and listen to somebody in the minority. That means shut up, sit back, try not to be immediately offended and defensive, but just listen, because they're going to give you a vast amount of education, because it's going to be so much different than what you know is true for you. Years ago in grad school, I did an internship in Southeast Dallas, and I don't know where that line of segregation lay, but all of a sudden I would be one of the only white people. And I remember counseling this grandmother and her two grandsons. She was raising her grandsons. And I asked her what her hopes and dreams were for her grandsons, right? So I'm like thinking she's going to say for them like college, get married, give her some great grandchildren. And she told me, keep them out of the pound and keep them out of the ground. Was not expecting that response at all. So I think as someone who comes from a obviously much more privileged existence, I need to listen to that stuff. I need to really try to understand where someone else is coming from, because even though, yes, we're all Americans, I'm somebody who is in the majority. And so if you're someone who's in the majority, be quiet and just do your best to listen.
Yeah, the good thing for somebody like me is that I come from all sides of the track. So, of course, came from very humble beginnings, born on welfare, Section 8, have been shot at by guns, have knives pulled on me at an early age, second, third grade. I told you guys about my story on the last show, but I also, moved to the suburbs, lived amongst predominantly Caucasians for a while, and had that experience. So, one thing I've learned is what's made me a strong, capable, and authentic leader in a lot of the things that I'm trying to do, because I have taken the time to listen to all sides of all different issues and different things going on in this world. And I know that's not the experience of the majority. I'm very blessed and fortunate in that way. And that's why I feel like even when it comes to this issue of LGBTQ, me being able to speak the way I speak, being connected to, let's say, the political party that I am, it's important for people that may come from that side of the aisle, people that think and like I do on a lot of things, to be able to hear from somebody like myself that speaks their languages. As I had a conversation the other day, and it was on the last show actually, and I told the gentleman that just because I'm, let's say, a Republican doesn't mean that I'm always going to agree with the majority, possibly of Republicans think or do, and I have no problem speaking out against those things as well. So when it comes to somebody like myself, I think again, it's the perfect way to start to have this conversation. I think when I posted this up today, I actually posted the flyer for the event. I had a Republican go on one of my posts and, make a comment that was off kilter. And I was able to come back with intelligence, patience, very quickly and rebut what he was putting out there. And it wasn't just about this, it was about Juneteenth as well. And I think that had a much bigger impact being able to do that than telling anybody on either side to sit down and shut up, because at the end of the day, what all people have to say is important. And just because one believes one way does not necessarily X out what the other person believes. And again, when we have intelligent conversations, we'll come to that understanding and be able to continue having dialogue at the end of the day. And that's what it's really about. And again, as to answer your question from before, that's why it's important to tell anybody, those from the LGBT community, those from underserved communities, you can do what it is you want in this country. You can get into things like politics at any time. Let your voice be heard, be who you are, be authentic, and your voice will shine through, and you will continue to be able to add intelligent conversation to the overall national conversation and move us forward.
Well, we will
Hold on.
respectfully agree.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jenny. What was you about to
I
say?
just said I still think that if you're part of the majority that you should be using your
Yeah.
ears more than your mouth.
Yeah.
That's okay. We don't have to agree. We
Yeah,
can.
you don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to
That's
agree.
agree.
But
Paris, were you gonna say that? Because I'm going to wrap it up. We've been on over
yeah,
an
I
hour.
just
You had something else?
yes, I do have a question. Can you be a true ally if you don't agree with something that the minority community, such as the LGBT community, is experiencing? Can you be an ally if you're not listening? Can you be a true ally if you're not understanding? How does that work? Is that even possible?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, yeah, you probably can if you're not, but that's not just with the LGBT community. If you're not willing to listen and find some understanding, you really can't be an ally to anybody but yourself, right? And that's any issue that you're talking about at the end of the day. And that's why I say I think it's important to have somebody like me on a program like this where I am willing to listen and understand, and probably am a lot further along than most people that maybe sit on my aisle because of my experiences, because of where I come from. So I've already listened, and I continue to listen all the time, and understand a lot more so than some the plight of your community. Understand that a lot of the stereotypes that go along with it aren't necessarily true. And again, as I said, I don't engage in the crazy and disrespectful rhetoric, nor do I let anybody that's surrounded by me do the same. And I think as we keep leading by that example, continue to have conversations where there's respect on both sides, we can bring more and more people to that understanding. But yes, there is not a lot of understanding in certain circles right now, but that's why it's so important to continue to engage the conversation, because it's not going to happen overnight. And if you have the patience and really are committed to finding that understanding and bringing that dignity to the community, to the situation, then we'll just continue to engage, not get disrespectful in any manner of it, and continue to progress at the end of the day, like we have with everything else, from Black issues to Hispanic issues to whatever it is in this country, like we always have. Nothing's going to happen overnight. But I promise you guys, I can speak for myself when I say, again, I come from a state and a time where I understand these issues, where I have the utmost respect for everyone being as free as they want to be and being who they want to be. And I will always, even once in Congress and things of that sort, stand by making sure everybody has that right and opportunity all the time.
I think I want to speak on this, and I'm allowed Jenna to speak on this.
I
Then
had a question for Jenna, but go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, go ahead then. All right, go ahead.
My
Ask Jenna.
question for you, Jenna, right? Because thank you, Darius, for everything that you said, but all of that sounds like to me as political speak. It doesn't feel like you're connecting with me as an LGBTQ plus person. I just feel like, again, it's overgeneralized. Even when I ask the question, how do we meet in the middle and have this discussion about all the things, all the laws, all the legislation that's going on with LGBT? Talk to me as if I'm a 5-year-old child, Jenna. How do we get in this middle in this room and have these conversations to where people do not decide to create legislation that stops affirming care for the trans community? Explain to me how we stop the bans on drag storybook hour. How do we even get there? I don't know. But how do we actually get to this middle space to where we can make some real changes without political speak, just generalize and going over what I'm 5 years old.
I think you have to, everybody kind of has their comfort bubble, right? It's what is familiar to you, right? And unless you're willing to step outside of that comfort zone, right, you're not going to be able to make a well-informed, educated decision about a group of people who's different from you. I would say go to a drag story hour. Like, just spend 5 minutes at a drag story hour. You will see that it is completely harmless. It really is just a drag queen reading stories to kids, and it's also letting those kids know that whoever they are, whatever they want to be, that's okay. You don't have to conform to any certain, box or whatever, that you can truly be who you are, and you're free to express that, and you're free to explore that, even if you are a man who likes to wear heels. That's okay. And again, I'm sorry, I can't back down from this. If you are in the majority, you need to use your ears more than your mouth, rather than decide that what you think about someone is truth. Maybe you should try to actually, again, see if that's actually true. We believe lots of things that aren't necessarily true. It's about challenging some of those beliefs that you have with, well, what evidence do I have to back this up, that this is even a valid statement? And that's true for, I know that for a long time there was kind of a anti I heard a lot of stuff about Sharia law and all that kind of stuff, and about how, Muslims are terrorists. But a lot of times people that make those kind of statements, like, someone who's Muslim, have you ever spent time? I think that a lot of what we think we don't like or even hate, we don't necessarily have a lot of insight into. We just know what we've heard, what maybe we seen on social media, some YouTube video, whatever, but not necessarily have any real experience with that.
Thank you. I wanted to end it with my opinion. I was told about, one of my board members told me, being a good ally and being an ally to the community is just being a humanitarian, just having empathy and treating somebody the way that you want to be treated, and actually defending their honor when they're not there. I think when you're having conversations with people that disagree and vehemently, that's fine, as long as you should still have the point of, people have a right to exist. People have a right to live. People have a right to prosper. And any legislation that's going to take their liberty, life, liberty, and their ability to prosper is something that anybody should be against. So I'm an ally because I'm a humanitarian. I have empathy, and I understand what it means to be persecuted just for being who you are, for whatever reason, and coming from a long line of persecution. And one of the big things to wrap it all up in a bow is, I look forward to registering to vote when I was 18, because it was passed down to me and my family. Me and my grandparents came from the Jim Crow South in the 50s, and went to New Jersey to get a better life for their children. And then I was born there, and they told to me about the different things about how they had to educate the poll taxes that they were running and things of that nature. So voting has been passed down to me. So when my children turned 18, I made sure that they registered to vote. And I never told them who to vote for. I don't care who you vote for. Just get involved and make sure your vote counts, because people died, literally died, for you to have that vote. So let's get involved. And I thank both of y'all. This was interesting. I'm sorry. Yeah, what? I'm sorry. I can't see.
You have a question. Yamira said, but wouldn't that fall into the parents' right? What should be taught to one's child outside of the home? Just like sex education, at what age is appropriate to introduce such topics? Social media doesn't help this subject matter either. You want me to answer that, or do you want to answer that, Jenna? You want to answer that?
Well, I'm not sure, but wouldn't that what is that?
She's saying, but
Like,
wouldn't that
drag
fall?
queens?
I guess she's talking about just sexuality, sexual orientation, I guess. I don't know. Could you
Well, that doesn't
elaborate,
have.
Mira?
I mean, sexuality doesn't have anything to do with being a drag queen. A drag
I,
queen is
It's a profession.
yeah.
It's a profession. It's
Yeah,
important.
it's a performance art.
Yeah.
That's doesn't.
But if she's talking about the parents' right to teach one child outside of the home, well, I'm just going to give it to you from an LGBT perspective. And what I keep trying to get at when I ask, where do we meet in the middle? In order for us to meet in the middle, we have to have real conversations. And just like Jenna said, you have to really listen, because I believe that a lot of times people believe that being LGBTQ has something to do with sex, and it has nothing to do with us wanting to have rampant sex. And we're not a cult where we're trying to grab everybody and turn them over to be gay, lesbian, trans, or whatever. That's just not what we do. We know who each other are. We know you're heterosexual. We don't want you. But
Being a marriage counselor, I'm telling you, gay people aren't having any more sex than anybody else.
no.
No,
But the thing
it's
is,
fine.
you're
It's all
talking
good.
about sex education, right?
Hmm.
So let's flip that. And this is where the equality piece come in. All during school, and I had sex ed. I don't know if they teach it in New Jersey still, but I had it. None of that resonated with me. So where you feel like we're trying to push something off on your child, well, think about it from an LGBT child's perspective that's sitting in that class, and we got to hear about heterosexuality. Do you think we feel oppressed? Do you think we don't feel erased while you're feeling like, oh my God, they're pushing an agenda, but you are erasing and oppressing us? So if you're asking what age is appropriate, what was the appropriate age for you to tell us about being heterosexual? What was that age? And if you could tell me that age, then that's the same age that's appropriate to introduce that child into what it's like to be LGBTQ. Trust me, that will not make that child jump. What is it? Turn to the other side. That is not happening. I want to tell you, I know since awareness, right? Just like you knew in awareness when you became aware that you liked women or you liked men, we know who we are. It's not something that I turned on the television and I said, ooh, this looks interesting. No, when I came into awareness, I knew who I was. I like this and I like that. And there's nothing that's going to change that. And there's nothing that's going to change your heterosexual child either. So that's the answer to your question. When school teaches heterosexuality, sex, heterosexual sex, it should teach about other forms of sex. When you start talking about gender, and I know you're not going to like this, it's multiple genders. Multiple genders. Teach about them all. That doesn't mean your child is going to go off and say, oh, I'm cisgender, but that doesn't sound fun. I want to be trans today. I want to be non-binary. It doesn't work like that. And this is, the conversations, political or otherwise, where we need to sit down and talk and educate. And then once you receive education about the community, you could become a true ally, because then you can make informed decisions. And once you do know about us, stuff like drag story hour is going to sound ridiculous to you. You're going to laugh. You're going to go, what the? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Affirming care. This is ridiculous. Oh my God. Why did we even waste our time on that? It's other sexual deviance. We're not a deviancy. You know what it is? Pedophilia. Chase that. That's something to chase. But I don't want to go too long. But if we're going to meet in the middle, it has to start with education. I think that all of these laws are crazy. I think we need to sit, we need to talk. You need to understand what this community is about and then work from there. Because all you're doing is harming people. You're harming people. And in some cases, you're killing people. Trans children. I wish Daria could come on here. Has anyone really talked to them? Do you know that they realize that they're trans at a very young age? That's awareness. It has nothing to do with sexual orientation. It's awareness. It's the great, and this is why my nonprofit is called I Am Me, the great I Am Me. And you can't tell me what that is. Stop oppressing me. But y'all could go ahead. Someone has said, sorry, got disconnected. Yes, education and having these discussions, but we do need to have them.
Yeah, we do. And it's passionate on both sides. And sometimes we need to just sit and listen to the other side because we don't live that life. So that's how I'm in a lot of cases with being around the LGBT community. I don't bring my own personal things into it. I listen to the story. We do our Me seminars and do our Sunday teas. I've listened through the stories and learned a lot of things and figured out that a lot of people have had horrible struggles to just try to be themselves, their true selves. And so I this has been a great conversation. This is supposed to be like 35, 40 minutes. We don't almost went an hour and a half. And I want to thank Darius, Mayfield, and Jenna for coming on and being very, very articulate and passionate on their views on what it is to be an ally and work with the LGBT community. I'd like to thank Pierce for coming on and giving us some insight as a person of the and see, because a lot of times we can have these conversations and on the side, but we don't actually have somebody that's part of the community that can say, hey, you getting something wrong, or hey, you got something right, or well, maybe this is how I feel and y'all need to hear this. Mm-hmm. So sometimes listening and without a predisposed thought works out. This has been a great discussion. Again, I thank everybody on the panel, and I thank people that's been watching and that's been sending messages, and maybe people that's just been sitting there not sending messages. Hopefully we gave you some education, and if you weren't already, hopefully we made you an ally, because that's what this is. So good night, and we'll see you next time on our Spotlight LGBT.
Good night. Thank you, guys.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And Pierce, that was awesome.